Hello there, welcome back. Now that we have Unity open, we have to create a new project so we can start understanding this tool a bit better. To make a new project, we go to the top right and press the New button. And now we have a few settings to adjust here. First of all, we need to set the project name. So let's name this Exploring Unity. The location of this project is going to be in a projects folder that I created under my home folder. And why did I do this? It's very common for newcomers to any game engine to just drop their projects into documents or desktop or downloads folder. This is not very good. It is better to have a folder just for your project so you can easily find them anywhere you want. Okay, so we have Exploring Unity as the project name, and the location is going to be projects. We're going to leave the 3D rendering mode enabled, and after that we're going to click Create Project. So after we do this, Unity is going to create a folder with the same name of your project name in your projects folder. Okay, it's going to be there. You can access through your operating system, either it is a Mac OS or Windows or Linux, and you can just find the files of your project there. And now the editor has opened. So if this is your first time working with a 3D game engine, it might seem a bit complicated in the beginning, okay, since this is the first time you're looking, but actually it makes pretty much sense, okay? Let's take a look on each of these windows and tabs available here one by one. So in the top left, you have a hierarchy window. Okay, this is going to work more or less like you have in your operating system. So for example, if you go to your pictures folder, you're going to see several other folders there for events that you went. So for example, a birthday party, or if you made a trip to a nice beach, or if you went to a party in a nightclub, there are going to be several folders. And inside of these folders, you're going to see different files that are going to be your pictures. That's pretty much how a hierarchy is going to work in Unity. Okay, we're going to have a list of files inside this hierarchy, and each of them are going to have their own hierarchy if you want. Okay, and these items that we see here, in this case we have main camera and we have directional light, they are called game objects. Okay, this name is very important, game object. It is the base entity for making a game in Unity. So you're going to have a game object for the camera that is going to render the game for the player. You're going to have a game object for the player. You're going to have a game object for enemies, for explosion effects, for a river, for whatever you can imagine that is going to change how your game is working, either visually or internally. It needs to be in a game object. That's pretty much how it works here. However, there is a problem, not a problem, kind of a characteristic of the hierarchy window. You can't see anything there, okay? Imagine you have a 3D cube, you would only see the name cube. So the hierarchy is basically just text, okay? And of course, configuring the hierarchy of the objects, okay? If you have a parent object that contains several children objects, that's pretty much everything you need. But what if we want to see what we have in this hierarchy? Okay, and this is the best thing of using a game engine, not just any programming language, but a game engine. Unity has a scene window. Okay, so this is kind of the gates for us to see the virtual world we are building. Okay, notice that we have a plane in here. We can see some gray guides, and the good thing about this is that if you right click in this scene window, notice that your mouse icon turns into an eye and a few buttons. And while you're holding the right mouse button, you can just look anywhere you want. Okay, left, right, top, bottom. It's like we have our own camera. Okay, so we as the developers are able to take a look on the entire level in here by just right clicking and looking around. Okay, so we can even examine the skybox that we have here. There's the sun up there. Okay, there are these two icons in here. And while we are in this mode, we can press the W, A, S, and D keys to navigate around, okay, which is great. If you have ever used first-person shooter games, if you have ever played them, then this should be familiar to you, okay? You just change where you're looking and press the W, A, S, D keys to strafe around. And you can even use Q and E to move down and up. And with these controls, you can reach pretty much anywhere in this scene. So if you're building a city, for example, this is going to be very useful. Okay, so you're going to go to places where the player is going to be, so you're going to see if the lighting seems okay, if the models, they have the right size, and if you have to reposition something, you can just use this window. Okay, it's very, very useful. And it's interesting to practice movement in this scene. Okay, just so you get used to the controls and you can work faster. Okay, so the things that we have in the hierarchy are also here in the scene. If you click on the main camera, you notice that some arrows appear in the main camera. And if you click on the directional light, you're going to see that the directional light is selected. But we're going to see more details on this soon enough. Okay, so remember, I told you this is a camera. Okay, we have a developer camera in here. But to be honest, there are two cameras in this scene. Okay, there's the one for the developer, which the player is not going to see, only us, when we are making the games, are able to see. But we also have another camera in here. Okay, you're going to see that there's this little icon for the camera. This is the main camera. And notice that this project that we made already added a camera to this scene. And it did this because this is what the players are going to use, so they're able to see things. Okay, this camera here is going to render the game for the player. It's going to draw the game for the player. So they are able to see, well, basically the entire game. So we have this camera here. If you take a close look, you're going to see that there's a little rectangle in front of it. Okay, that's the view frustum. It's like the area that is used for the camera to look at places. And there are these little rectangles in here that are these lines in here that are going to kind of show the range that the camera is reaching, and it's going to draw. And while you have this camera selected, you can see that there's a little box in the bottom right of the scene window. This is the camera preview. Okay, and this is basically what the players are going to see. This is the actual real deal. Okay, you can see a quick preview of the game here, but if you want to see more details, you can just go to the game window. Right now we can only see the horizon, we can see the blue sky and a ground in here, but once we develop the game and add some 3D elements and add actual movement logic, we're going to see the actual game running here. Okay? And okay, so at the right portion of the editor, there is the inspector window. Okay, so what is this about? What does this window do? It shows details of whatever we have selected. It can be a game object that is in our scene, or it can be a file that is in our project. Let's check a game object first. If we click on the main camera and we look at the inspector window, you notice that it's now filled with lots of details in here. Okay, at the top you're going to see the name of the game object. Okay, so remember, before everything, this is a game object that is called main camera. We have a tag that pretty much, it's like a text, it's like a little label that is telling that this is a main camera, okay, but it depends on the usage. Sometimes we don't use tags, sometimes we use tags. It depends on the game. You're going to see throughout this course that we are going to use these from time to time. We have layers, so we can use these to check for collisions, but it's not used for the camera. And if you look below these items that we're looking right now, there's going to be a list of other items. Okay, so we have transform, camera, GUI layer, flare layer, and audio listener. These items, they are called components. Okay, and this is very important. Okay, game object is something that is very important. It's the base entity for the game, but components are also essential for making a game because they are what change how game objects behave. Okay, so if we make an empty game object that just says main camera, well, that's not enough. We need to specifically tell Unity that we want this camera to behave like a camera, and that's why we have a camera component. Okay, this one. And we also have a transform component. Let's take a look on this one first. Okay, this is the most basic component for every game object you can imagine because it deals with the position, the rotation, and the scale of whatever game object you have. Okay, this is very basic for positioning in Unity, and we're going to see more about this shortly. Okay, we also have a camera component, and this component is going to show us details about the camera. So for example, right now the clear flags for the camera is skybox. Okay, so it renders like this. But if we wanted to use a flat color, we can just click on skybox and select solid color, so it becomes entirely blue. And if you want to change the color of the solid color, you can just click on this blue rectangle and use the color picker to choose whatever color you want. Okay, but that's not what we're going to do here. But you see, a lot about Unity is experimenting. We can just get here and change some values and see the immediate effect in the game. Okay, sometimes we don't even have to recompile the code if we're writing some code. Okay, it's not necessary at all because we can just change these things, and through script, Unity is going to process these changes and then change how the game is looking like. Okay, you can even change the field of view of the camera, so it's going to have a small rectangle or a large one. Okay, in general, we don't have to change the default values for the camera, but still it's good to know that these things are here. And for the directional light, we're going to see other things. We also have a transform component, but we this time have a light component. So this light works as a directional light, but we can change them to spotlight or point light or area light later if we want. Okay, we can change the light's color, we can change the intensity, how the shadows are going to be rendered. So these are better seen once you have some 3D elements in the game and you can see how the shading is working for them. Okay, and we also, in the bottom of the Unity editor, we have a project window. This window contains the assets folder, which is very important because this is going to contain all the files that are going to be used to make the game to happen. Okay, so any 3D models that we're going to use, any scripts that we create, any materials and animations and sound and video, every file that you can imagine that can be used for making this game to work well is going to be in the assets folder. Okay, that's why we have this one here. And another window that is very important and is the console window. If this isn't enabled here, you can just go to window and you can go to console and press this button. So if you're a developer, you should be familiar with this, but if you have never seen that, this window is basically used for showing messages to the player. Okay, and there are three kinds of messages that we can see here. We have error messages, which are colored in red. We have warning messages, which are yellow, and we have basic information messages, which are white or black. Okay, and the error messages are, as the name suggests, when you make any mistakes in your code, or maybe some plugin is not working right. Well, it's kind of the biggest message that Unity can show you to tell that something is wrong. Okay, so you're going to see an error. You have warnings when there are some suggestions to improve your code, or there's something that is not optimized and you can change that. And the log messages, the informational messages, are basically to show information for you as a developer. Okay, you can even make your own messages in here so you can see what's happening in the game to see if it's behaving correctly, or if you're going to see some errors while you're developing the game. Well, you can use these informational messages to see what's happening behind the scenes. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the Unity editor. Okay, we have seen the hierarchy window that lists items, the game objects in the game. We have the scene window that we can navigate in here and see everything that we have. We have the game window that shows what's going to be rendered for the player. Inspector that shows details, so we see the name of the game object, some components. We have the project window with the assets folder for the files, and we also have console. And this is pretty much it for the Unity editor. In the next lesson, let's take a deeper look on positioning of elements.